Okay, so this video is about my personal journey in trying to figure out the best replacement for my venerable Sony A6000 camera, which I've used for many, many years. You know, it's a great camera. I love it. Works quite well. But over the years, I have discovered that I enjoy more and more shooting in manual mode, full manual. And that is where this camera really falls down. Now, over the years, there's lots of new camera technology and lots of good reasons to upgrade cameras. Manufacturers always want us to upgrade, right? So, I mean, touch screen, audio input, flippy screen, much better autofocus, as evidenced by some of my videos. You know, tracking. There's lots of reasons. Lots of good reasons. Pick color science to upgrade your camera after a few years. But for me, this video is about how do I get a better ergonomic feel operating in manual mode, right? So if you don't shoot in manual mode, don't care about manual mode, maybe you don't want to watch this video. Because this camera works fine, aperture priority, shutter priority, you know, full auto, of course, program, that's fine. But when you need to go to manual mode, you need to control shutter speed and aperture easily, right? Even with auto ISO, you still need two controls. And this camera only has one dial. And I talked about this ad nauseum in previous videos. You can go back, look at them. Recently, a lot of other people have discovered, hey, this camera needs a front dial or a back dial or both, right? And I'm sure it's coincidence. But anyway, that was my concern. That's what I was looking at. And I was waiting for when the Sony A6600 was announced. Maybe they'll put a front dial, you know, and so they didn't, as we know. And so then I'm like, okay, now that the announcements have all been made and there probably won't be any new APS-C cameras for a while, I have to decide whether I want to stick with upgrading to the 6600 with what it has. You can see a million videos about what it has, or I was considering between 6600 and going to full frame, because we know the A7 III has front dial and back dial. It's got great ergonomics compared to this, but you are sacrificing, you know, different things. And I just couldn't figure it out. You know, no matter how many YouTube videos I watched, could not figure out what to do. So what I decided to do was I decided to rent both cameras so I could hold it in my hand, and only, you know, considering the ergonomic issue of, you know, manual control ergonomics, right? 6600 and A7 III, I need to test them. Now, I can't get my hands on an A6600. I'm not a fantastic YouTuber. Can't get my hands on it, so I had to come up with a proxy for the A6600, and I wanted to make it so I'm going to compare the A6600 and the new 16-55 2.8 G lens to an A7 III, ideally, you know, with a Tamron 28-75 2.8 constant aperture lens. I thought I would try to rent those. Well, you can't rent those. So I got on camerasize.com and looked at what the sizes were relative to those two cameras. And I figured out that if I got a Sony A6400 and, you know, stuck perhaps 16-55 or 18-135 travel lens on there, that's approximately the size, slightly smaller, approximately size. So I take like a 6400 and stick that lens on there, and that would approximate what I would be getting with a 6600 and the new 2.8 lens from a size and ergonomic perspective only, nothing else. It's all I'm testing. It's kind of like, how would that feel in the hand? How would it be to use in manual mode? Right, so that would be my proxy for the 6600 and the 16-55 2.8. And I would rent an A7 III with the Tamron lens. Well, the problem is, where I looked, I couldn't rent the Tamron lens. So I decided to rent, you know, A7 III with some cheapo kit lens, and that would be good enough to test out the ergonomics in manual mode. It's the only thing I want to test. So I tried to do that. I am filming now on the A6400. It's actually using a 24mm Rokinon lens right now, but I have the 18, the 135. So I have the 6400 I'm filming on, and I have here a Sony A7 III that is also, so I rented both of those. Now you say, well, that's not the small 2470 kit lens, Tom. Well, you're right. It is the 24 to 70 2.8 G Master lens. And the only reason this is here is because when Borrow Lenses called me up right the day before they shipped it and said, we don't have the cheapo lens that you wanted to rent, which was one of the expensive of all to rent. I didn't want to spend that much money. Would you take this one instead for no extra charge? So I said, okay, I get to test out the G Master lens. This is ultra cool, super fantastic lens. So I said, sure, I'll take that too. It does exaggerate the size and weight issue a little bit, although I can put the Rokinon 24mm on there if I want a small kit. So that's okay, because the main goal here was to test the ergonomics of, this camera has a front dial, it has a back dial, it has dedicated exposure compensation dial, lots of custom buttons, right? It does not have the flippy screen, right? But that's not really what we're testing here. I wanted to test manual mode using this camera and manual mode using the 6400, which I'll use this as a proxy for the proxy, because I'm filming with a 6400 right now, right? But so I got them together and I wanted to test them because that's how I could make my decision without having a 6600 in my hand, because I wanted to decide, and I wanted to decide now. And I wanted to figure it out. And there's no amount of YouTube videos you're gonna watch on YouTube to figure out how a camera feels in your hand and how it will operate best for you. I knew this camera, the 6000, worked fine in everything except for manual mode. And it's also kind of a pain in the butt to shoot YouTube videos, right? Because there's no dedicated mic cab, no flippy screen, but that's kind of like a bonus. But I knew it needed help in full manual. So that was my test. That's what I'm gonna do. And in the next video, I'll talk to you about how it worked out. Thanks.